In a dark corner of a temple in southern Egypt, carved high on a stone beam where almost no one looks, there is an image that should not exist. It was cut into the wall more than 3,300 years ago, long before electricity, long before glass screens, long before the word machine had any meaning in any human language. And yet, when you stand under it and tilt your head back, you see something impossible. You see a computer, a flat rectangular screen, a base beneath it, lines that look like a stand, a keyboard, a monitor, stacked together in a way that no ancient pattern should ever produce. It sits there in plain sight, on a temple wall older than the Bible, older than the alphabet you are reading right now, older than almost everything we call history. Egyptologists have tried to explain it. Archaeologists have tried to dismiss it. Tour guides whisper about it. The internet has gone wild over it, and the more you look at it, the less sense it makes. This is the story of what is really on that wall, where it is, who carved it, why no one wants to talk about how it got there, and the strange, almost unbelievable answer that science has quietly known for years, but somehow the world still hasn't heard. Stay with me. By the end of this video, you're going to see this carving the way almost no one on the internet sees it. To find this image, you have to travel about 300 miles south of Cairo into the dry hills of Upper Egypt. There, on the edge of the desert, sits one of the oldest sacred sites in the entire ancient world, a place called Abydos. Abydos wasn't just a city. To the ancient Egyptians, it was the doorway between the world of the living and the world of the dead. The earliest kings of Egypt, kings who lived 1,000 years before the pyramids of Giza, were buried here. The god Osiris, the lord of the afterlife, was said to be entombed somewhere beneath its sands. So when a pharaoh named Seti I came to power around 1290 BCE, he chose Abydos for the most important building project of his reign. He ordered the construction of a massive limestone temple, a temple that would honor every pharaoh who had ever ruled Egypt, going back thousands of years. He didn't live to see it finished. When Seti died, his son took over. You may have heard of him. His name was Ramesses II, the Ramesses, the pharaoh of the Exodus stories, the conqueror, the builder, the man whose face stares down from monuments all over Egypt. And it was during Ramesses' work on this temple that something very strange ended up being carved into one of the upper stone beams. Today, if you visit Abydos, almost no tour guide will point it out to you. It sits high above the floor, in a shadowy stretch of ceiling, in the first great hall of the temple. You can walk under it a dozen times and never notice. Most tourists do exactly that, but if you have a camera with a zoom lens, and if you know where to look, you will see it, a shape that doesn't belong. The image is small, maybe the size of a car license plate, but the second your eyes lock onto it, you cannot unsee what it looks like. There is a rectangular frame, almost perfectly square at the top, narrower at the bottom. Inside the frame, you can see what looks like a flat surface, then a horizontal line below it, then a base. To a modern eye, it is unmistakable. It looks like a flat screen monitor sitting on a stand, a computer, and it gets stranger. Right next to it, packed into the same row of carvings, are other shapes that look just as wrong. Geometric forms with smooth edges, symbols that don't match any standard hieroglyph in any ancient Egyptian dictionary, shapes that look engineered, shapes that look designed. When the photographs of this carving first hit the internet, people lost their minds. How could a civilization that wrote in pictures of birds, snakes, and reeds carve something that looked like a computer monitor? How could ancient stoneworkers, 3,300 years ago, produce a shape that matches the silhouette of a piece of technology that was not invented until the late 20th century? The wildest theories appeared almost immediately. That ancient Egyptians had access to lost knowledge, that they were taught by a civilization that came before them and disappeared, that something or someone visited Egypt and left a record carved into the stone before vanishing forever. You will find videos and articles online that swear, with complete confidence, that no researcher has ever been able to explain this carving, that it stands as proof of a forgotten chapter of human history, that the official story doesn't add up. Here is the part nobody tells you. That carving has only been famous for about 25 years. For most of modern history, this image sat on that temple wall completely unknown. Egyptologists had been working at Abydos since the 1800s. Thousands of scholars, archaeologists, photographers, and tourists had walked beneath that beam for over 150 years. Nobody talked about it, nobody pointed at it. It wasn't in any textbook, it wasn't in any documentary. Then, in the late 1990s, a handful of amateur photographers visiting Abydos pointed their cameras up at the ceiling. They took close-up shots. They posted them on the early internet, and the images started to spread. On March 2nd, 1999, an American television network aired a 2-hour live special from Egypt. It was watched by millions of households across the United States, and during that broadcast, the Abydos carving was shown to a mass audience for the very first time. Within days, the image was everywhere. Magazine articles, late-night radio shows, internet forums, books, documentaries. Within a year, It had become one of the most argued about ancient images on Earth. So when somebody tells you that this is a 3,000-year-old mystery that has baffled scientists for millennia, that's not true. The image is 3,000 years old. The mystery is 25 years old. And there is one more thing about those photographs you need to know. Many of the most famous versions of the image, the ones you have seen online, the ones used in viral videos, the ones printed in alternative history books, have been digitally cleaned. The edges have been sharpened. The contrast has been pushed. Missing lines have been gently filled in. The result is a crisp, almost diagram-like image of a computer. The actual carving in person is a mess. It is eroded. It is dirty. The lines are uneven and broken. The shape that looks so clearly like a monitor on your phone screen looks, in real life, more like a smudge of chisel marks on a weathered stone. People who travel all the way to Abydos to see it with their own eyes often walk away disappointed, which raises the obvious question. If the carving is really a mess, and if it isn't a clean, deliberate image of a computer, then what is it? This is where the real story begins. And honestly, it is wilder than any alien theory. To understand what you are actually looking at, you need to understand a single word, palimpsest. It comes from ancient Greek. It means a writing surface that has been written on, scraped off, and written on again. The ancient world did this all the time. Parchment was expensive, stone was permanent. So when somebody wanted to change a message, they didn't start over from scratch. They covered the old writing and put new writing on top. In ancient Egypt, this happened constantly, especially in temples, especially with the names of pharaohs. And nobody in Egyptian history did it more often than Ramesses II. When Ramesses took the throne after his father Seti died, he inherited Seti's unfinished temple at Abydos. The walls had already been carved with Seti's royal titles, his names, his blessings, his promises to the gods. Ramesses had a habit, well documented by modern Egyptologists, of erasing the names of other pharaohs from monuments and putting his own name in their place. He did it to his grandfather. He did it to ancestors going back hundreds of years. He even did it to his own father. On that beam high inside the Temple of Abydos, the masons of Ramesses did exactly that. They filled in Seti's original carved hieroglyphs with wet plaster. Once the plaster dried, they carved Ramesses' new royal titles on top. For roughly 3,000 years, that plaster sat there. It held its shape. From the floor, the inscription looked clean and singular, just the name of Ramesses, exactly as he wanted. But plaster is softer than limestone, and 3,000 years is a very long time. Slowly, century by century, the plaster crumbled. As it fell away, it exposed the older carving of Seti I underneath. By the time the modern world arrived in Egypt with cameras, both inscriptions were partly visible at the same time. The old name of Seti and the new name of Ramesses, layered on top of each other in the same patch of stone. Two completely different sentences, two completely different kings, bleeding through each other after 30 centuries of patience. That is what you are actually looking at when you see the computer on the wall at Abydos. Two royal titles, written 15 years apart, smashed into the same square of stone. The carving was decoded sign by Egyptologist Joshua Robertson in 2016, and again by Professor Peter Brand in 2023. The original message of Seti I reads, roughly, "He who suppresses the 9 enemies of Egypt, Menmatre." Menmatre was Seti's throne name. It means the justice of the sun god is eternal. The new message of Ramesses, carved on top, reads, "The protector of Egypt, who repels foreign lands, User Matre Setepenre." That was Ramesses' throne name. It means the justice of the sun god is powerful, chosen of the sun god. And the shape that looks like a flat screen monitor on a stand? It is a single ancient bow symbol from Seti's original carving, with 2 arm symbols from Ramesses' new carving stacked on top of it. A bow, 2 arms, that is the computer. So here is the question that should be bothering you right now. If this is really just a layered inscription of 2 pharaoh names, why does our brain see a computer? Why do millions of people, from completely different cultures, all over the internet, look at the same eroded wall and see the same machine? The answer has a name. It is called pareidolia. Pareidolia is the official name for what your brain does when it forces meaning onto random shapes. It is the reason you see faces in clouds. It is the reason you see animals in tree bark. It is the reason an electrical outlet seems to be smiling at you. It is the reason people see religious figures in burnt toast. It happens because of a specific structure in your brain called the fusiform gyrus. It sits in your temporal lobe, just behind your ear, and it is one of the most powerful pattern recognition tools in nature. It evolved to instantly recognize familiar shapes in chaotic environments. Faces in a crowd, predators in tall grass, friends at a distance. The trade-off is that your fusiform gyrus is generous. It would rather give you a false alarm than miss something real. If there is even a hint of a familiar shape in front of you, It will lock on and tell your conscious mind, look, that is a thing you know. This is why, when you stare at an eroded patch of stone full of overlapping ancient carvings, your modern brain, which has spent its entire life surrounded by computers, screens, and rectangular machines, instantly assembles those random fragments into the most familiar object it can find, a computer. The Egyptians did not carve a computer. Your brain finished the picture, and the carving has not changed in 3,000 years. You have. Your visual vocabulary is full of things the ancient Egyptians could not have imagined, so you bring those things to the wall with you. The mystery lives inside your skull, not inside the stone. I want to leave you with one last thought. The internet has spent 25 years selling you a story that says ancient Egypt had impossible technology, computers, lost wisdom, visitors from somewhere else. It is an exciting story. It gets clicks. It sells books. But the real story is, in my opinion, more beautiful than any of that. The real story is about a son who tried to erase his father's name from a temple wall, who covered Seti's hieroglyphs in plaster and carved his own on top because he wanted history to remember him instead, who succeeded for 3,000 years, and then the plaster fell. And right now, today, in the year you are watching this video, we can read both names, the father's and the son's, side by side, bleeding into each other on the same patch of stone, because nothing humans build, no matter how powerful or how famous, lasts forever. Not even an attempt to be forgotten. That is what is really on the wall at Abydos. Not a machine, not a monitor, not a piece of impossible technology. A family story, written in stone, that survived long enough for us to finally read it. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button and subscribe. There are dozens of other ancient images the internet has gotten completely wrong, and I want to walk you through every single one of them. Drop a comment below and tell me which one I should cover next. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.